Without further ado, this is a Māori economy panel. We have illustrious guests. Trevor Moike, you should know who Trevor is. If you don't, read his bio online. We have Pere Mita from Te Matatini. We have our friend Manu Caddie, Tairāwhiti based, and our friend Laine Fisher from Te Puni Kōkiri, who has been supporting this kaupapa. So obviously the economy is a big thing in this whole space. And we've heard lots of little bits. So we're going to have our team here, our panel here, educating us. Tēnā koutou.
Check. Kaururu koe te pōku waira. Mo yarara te matahi tuna, mo yarara te mātahi taua. Kia tiritiri, kia rea, kia mātuna iwa, kia hiwa rā, kia hiwa rā. Kia hiwa rā ki tēnei tuku, kia hiwa rā ki tērā tuku, kia whakapurua tonu koe, ki te moe, whakapurua tonu. Whakapurua tonu I rungi te tai tēnei whenua, aha koa ahau. E hāpai ake ene o ngā taonga tuku iho, ka hau mie. Huie, tāiki e. Kia ora tātou, I come from the east. The far east, that means the other side of the Caddie Bridge. Number two, I'm not sure who put me on the program, but buckle up, because there's a couple of things you might want to hear. Number three, we're in the world of R-E-O. So switch your iPhone on if you want to hear it later on when you're doing podcasting, because I got no idea how to do that. Number four, I noticed in the room the generational, intergenerational across the tepu that has come from Papahone, Wallace Hetaraka, some of the troublemakers whose names were mentioned today, through time on into the emergent, yet to get a blood nose, sometimes going to get some scars. Piki te kaha, piki te ora, piki te wairua. Push the button. Push the button again. So that's me. That's a way better shot than the one in the bio. The bio one had me about 80 years ago. This is a recent one. And when I came into the room, I didn't have a slide pack. But when I saw the tuatara on one side and the kukupa kereru tūhoe tigo on the other side, I got wawatatanga. And so here we are. I'm going to talk about some thoughts to do with Y262. I was going to ask the tikis to play Sensitive to a Smile, because Herbs put their neck out against the French and the bomb. Herbs put their neck out because his sister was among the early claimants, and Herbs put their neck out for daring to go to Uepohatu to launch their waiata, Sensitive to a Smile. A very handsome-looking 22-year-old Sir Herewini Wharata was present. So that's how I know we're on. Atifai, the dude, I've spelt his name wrong. He brings to this caliber a question about why. So Y262 might be Y2002. Because what we've got to think about is mawai, nawai, mowai, mewai, awai, and kowai. And we've heard enough today, especially around the mnemonics inside the reo kaupapa. He reo rangatira tēnei. We're no longer talking about a curriculum subject in the matriculation of our minds. We've busted out of that, and the room is evidence. Push the button. I come from a long line of uncles. This is a very handsome one. He's on the $50 note, which is notable for a whole lot of reasons. When you attend Hiruharama School and Waipiro Bay School, the buses were all called by tipuna ancestral names. There was Hikurangi, there was Poraurangi, there was Aorangi. But us kids, we refused to go on any of them until Aotearoa came along the road to pick us up to take us to school. Now the thing about that, it brings a particular kind of economic outlook that has never failed me. Make dust or eat dust, choose. Never let schooling interfere with your education, choose. Catch Aotearoa, because Aotearoa moved us through the 20th century and on into the 21st century with a series of whenua arrangements that we're bouncing off, and I'll get to some numbers soon. So I'm going to talk about mokonomics, iwinomics, punanomics, edunomics, and some summaries. Anybody at the wrong meeting? First, some harmonomics. This is the worst shift to get a speaking date on. After the lunch, and then after the afternoon tea, after the lunch. And then I'm glad they weren't serving wine, because then it'd become like the 21st, trying to MC something. Etu. Etu. After me, go A-E-I-O-U. Pa, pe, pi, po, pu. Fa, fe, fi, fo, fu. Right, with a bit of panache, repeat the line after me. A in ara, a path of course. E in eke, upon a horse. E in inu, and drink it quick. O in hoha, you make me sick. Sing in pape pipo boo boo. Fa fe fi fo fu fu. Tairua toru wha iau e hi se rea. Mokonomics te tiroanga mokopuna, the purview of mokopuna. Mokopuna been a pervasive theme as we take te reo of this curriculum and weave it into the language of leadership. Te kōrero rangatira, te reo rangatira, te reo e heki iho mai, ia iho matua kore, dung, 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 dung. So we've got to unfold that ourselves. We're the boomer generation. Not long after Aotearoa came the baby boomers. You know, Elvis, rock and roll. Then the millennials. I want to be the CEO yesterday. I have feelings. You know, I've got 10 degrees. You need to well-being me. You know, and we bought into some styles of diversity and inclusion that should have stayed in California. Because we are rangatira, we operate to a different cadence. And each of us has a responsibility to the other. We run in a we paradigm, not a I paradigm. We run in a set of tikanga that are nomics around te oranga taiao, te oranga tangata. That's different to extractives. Sorry about this. Want me to go faster? Yeah, boy. We've done this all in about 50 to 70 years. And we're at the precipice of another 10,000 coming down the chute at speed. So puna ora, puna rangatira, puna motu hake, the purview of the mokopuna. We're 1 million. 30 of that is Asian, 30 of that is Palangi, 30 of that is us. That's a demography of tweaking the way we think about one another. Abai? Iwinomics, one of my favorite topics. We're running at 70 billion plus. We're tracking towards 100 billion by 2030. Notice we talk B's now, not M's. And we're tracking to a trillion plus this side of 2100. What that means is, what Rachel and others were talking about earlier, is that the numbers accruing to our prosperity and our ability to dream through te reo, to anchor off whenua, whakapapa, and whanaungatanga, maybe, arguably, we may never have been there recently anyway. So build, grow, learn, or get home. I'll say that again. Build, grow, learn, or go home. This ain't greenwashing. Park your Lexus, because this ain't Texas. Balance up en route. Curving upwards, we're early days, but we found ways to do the close scrapes and to drop our cancel culture. We've adopted that from somewhere, not here. I don't even know what the definition is, but I see a lot of it. Advance whenua, whakapapa whanaungatanga. Run rangi tu haha. I o nui, i o roa, i o te mataho. So then, as I peel this towards an end, it's pretty speedy. If service is beneath you, then leadership is way beyond you. And there are people running today, they understand that. They've been careful and caring. They've taken the verbs that we manifest, manakitanga, Tiaki Taonga, whanaungatanga, and they've applied them to how they've looked after one another. Why? So that we can be cool. So with that in mind, the last insight is this. Even this kind of climate weather, especially down the other end of the paddock, will pass too. And the question for us is, where will you and I be? Because it's never going to be the screams of the enemy. It's the silence of our buddies. Kia kaha, kia maia, kia manawa nui. Troublemaker, and currently down that end of the terrace, we're not the takeaway bar at this end of Courtney in place. So you got to work through making whatever change you can. My thing about te reo, i roto i ngā tari kāwanatanga, is at least have the good manners to say moike properly, and at least have the good manners to say ngāti kahungunu, ngāti porou properly, and at least have the dignity to know the difference between kura and se heroini parata. On that space, well, we all know, but some of our cousins, they don't know. Last lesson, up to fight. The Māori Language Commission named all of the departments of government in 1988. Trevor got the minute. And among all of the departments of that day, only the tax department has the original name. That's why they call them the Tari Tāke. Our name was, the treasury was called Te Kai Tohu Tohu Kau Paparawa. Might have been beautiful in 88, but when I got there, nobody could say it. So I found it offensive to the novice tongue and the accomplished ear. So we've switched our manners and we think like this in a modern way. Ko te tai whakarunga, ko te tai whakararo. Ko te tai tokerau, ko te tai tonga. Ko te tai hauauru, ko te tai rāwhiti. Tēnei ko te tai ohanga. E mihi nei, hui e.
Kia ora. Whānau, homita pakipaki. Papa Trev. I'm trying to be the Obi-Wan Kenobi to my Yoda over here, so tēnā koutou. We Pere Mita, please come to the stand. He's going to talk about opportunities with te matatini kapahaka, business opportunities. Tēnā koutou.
Te hoko whitu toa mauria atura, te pueru o koutou tipuna e, te mana me te wehi e, te mana me te wehi e, hei hoa ki tā whiti nui, ki tā whiti pāmamau, aue te aroha, e ngau ki none. O tira i tēne wā ere rā, mā te kingi o ngā kingi koutou, e manaki e, ko te tangi tēne a te ngākau e. Kia ora tātou. Ko i Pere Mita taku ingoa no te takiwa e ki ana ko te uranga o te rā. My role is the legal counsel for Te Matatini Group, and I've been invited to talk about commercialising intellectual property. And how do I work this? No. So I've been with Te Matatini Enterprises for 10 years, and Te Matatini Enterprises is the commercial subsidiary of the society Te Matatini, which was first incorporated in 1972. And the role of the society is to protect language and culture, and the role of the enterprise is to realise the commercial opportunity from promoting that language and that culture. And so I know that commercialising cultural assets, it's not everybody's cup of tea, and if it isn't your cup of tea, you don't have to drink from it. Ka pai? But I can guarantee you that if you don't, somebody else will. Or somebody else might already be drinking your cup of tea. And so what we've been doing over the last 10 years with Te Matatini Enterprises is working with our kapa, firstly, to protect their intellectual property interests, and secondly, to commercialise those. The starting point for commercialising cultural IP, and we've been criticised for this in the past, and our response has always been to those who have criticised us for commercialising culture, is that we are actually culturalising commerce. Ka pai? And so the starting point for that is actually us understanding the value and power of our culture. That is the starting point. And so from an investment perspective, people will pay money for you to produce cultural goods and services. They will. And why? Because it's their cultural integrity and cultural authenticity that you can provide in their brand validation. That's what they will invest in. In terms of our creators, they support in producing those cultural goods and services. Ka pai, so the tohunga of our art forms, our trades, our cultural services, we rely on you. And there's a soft power in that, right? And that soft power is the ability to influence through attraction. Kapahaka sexy. 100%, we are the best singers in the world. With all of my Ngāti Pro humility, I say that. We are also cultural influencers. So we get around about 40 to 50,000 people attending Te Matatini in person, but our social platforms are reaching 100 million plus per month. That's how much people are hungry to be a part of our culture and participate in it. And there's that inclusion part that we realized about 10 years ago, that people who didn't have te reo still wanted to be a part of it. So we created a product called Haka Translate, which simultaneously translates the performances on stage into 8 different languages. So we can get that participation in from all over the world, and that increased our viewership by 800% in a year. But with all of that, we need our protectors, and we are fortunate to have Sir Selwyn Parata as the chair of our society, because we often come with our innovative ideas, and he often says to us, do we need all of that? And so you've got to have those gatekeepers to ensure that us who are the new netcasters, that we are doing the right thing by ourselves and by our people. The other thing that I want us to talk about is this koha versus commerce approach. Now, we will pay our producers, we will pay our broadcasters, we will pay everybody else but the subjects of that cultural content. And when we do that, we devalue our art forms, we undermine the true value of generations of mātauranga that sit within those taonga. And so if we continue with the narrative that we will work for nothing, the world will continue to expect us to work for nothing. And so aroha statistics about our creative artists and our performing artists not being compensated for their mahi actually suggests that the industry is in a dire state. And if we don't value our own culture, no one else is going to. So what I'm saying is our tohunga, our pukenga, they are worth more than a hungi and a kapiti. So in terms of the opportunities, what we've had to do over the last 10 years is decolonize our economy. And one of the ways we've done that is economic sovereignty, which is to decenter creators and recenter the subjects of those creative works. And what does that mean? That means that the intellectual property interests that sit in those taonga need to sit with the subjects of those works and not necessarily the creators. And I'm talking about the legal position. So the legal position in the Copyright Act is the creator of a work is the owner of the copyright in that work. We have said, no, you are not. From a Te Matatini perspective, the owners of that work should be our kapa and the composers of those waiata. And any commercial benefits that derive from any relationship or contract must go back to those kapa and to those composers, and that is the model that we operate under. So that wealth distribution has to go back to the people, nō rātou i ngā taonga, nō rātou i ngā mātauranga. The other thing that we need to do is reimagine our work and our value. This is our market. We control it. And like I said earlier, if we continue to work for nothing, the world will expect us to work for nothing. So what we've done over the last 10 years is we've increased the IP value of kapahaka assets by 130%. And we've said if you want to film, photograph, or broadcast kapahaka performances, then you will not own it, and you will license it for a fee, and the first ones to be paid out are our kapa. Not the last, because that's usually how that regime works. that the producers take everything, generally speaking, and if there's anything left, then the subjects will get something. The other thing I want to talk about in the mahi that we've been doing is this thing called Tiaki Taonga and versus kaipupuritanga. And Papa Api Mahuika used to talk about this a lot. Are you kaitiaki or are you merely kaipupuri? And so in the last 5 years, we've been working on a Taonga repatriation program, which is seeing 52 years of kapahaka archives, the rights that sit in those repatriated back to kapa and noe. Because the usual regime is, we'll pay you a fee and we'll own everything. That doesn't serve mana motu hake or tino rangatiratanga. And it also doesn't serve kaitiakitanga. So we say, you can be kaipupuri for the term of your license, but the subjects of these cultural assets will still be kaitiaki forever and a day. So that includes the ability to commercialize these cultural assets. I think part of the other thing too is that for those of us who are casting new nets, to use Kura's analogy, yes, go back to the old net and ask them where the fish are. But there are other questions that are pertinent as well. They are, can I fish? When I catch the fish, whose fish are those fish? Are they mine because I caught them? Or do they belong to someone else? And when I've got those fish, what am I allowed to do with them? So it's not just about identifying where the fish are. There are protocols that also go with that I think some of the new net casters of this generation are missing. Because rangatahi Māori, sad to say, are the biggest infringers of kapa aka IP that exist. And we've got a tough job in our office to try and put a cap on all of that. And what you're inadvertently doing by doing that is that you are impeding the right of those who are trying to exercise mana motu hake over that IP, the opportunity to commercialise or protect that IP. So my kōrero to those of us who are doing that mahi is whakamutu atu. I know we're on the graveyard shift too, and I said I'll give you the fast track of my presentation. I know we've got two other kai kōrero on the panel, so I'm going to... Kawhai. I'm going to finish on this here. So, what's the role of the kāwanatanga in all of this? And I don't want Sir Selwyn to get up after this kōrero and go, they don't have a role in this. So I'll take my matatini potai off maybe for now and say that there is opportunity for legislative frameworks to support the exercise of mana motu hake in this space. And what does that look like? It recognises collective ownership or custodianship of cultural assets and the IP that sits in that. It also recognises the intergenerational transfer of mātauranga. And Laine spoke about it earlier today around the limited shelf life of copyright protection. Those are my words, not hers, but she spoke about that kaupapa. And so if you think about why we compose waiata and haka and who we compose for, most of the times it's not for us. The first words of the waiata that we sung this morning were he kupu tuku iho mo tēnei reanga. That's this generation, that's the next generation, that's all of the generations to come after this. Part of that too is to support us in regulating cultural appropriation. Now that's not just the kāwanatanga responsibility, that's ours as well. Because if we don't follow our own tikanga and our own protocols, we send a message to the rest of the world that that way of being is okay, when it is not. Ka pai? Fast track vision. Kia ora, tēnā tate.
Te mi tuatai ki te mano te whenua nei, te Aotearoa whānui, Ngāti tō rangatira, tēnā koutou. Ki ngā kai kreme, ngā morihu, tēnā koutou. Kai me ngā mokopunua, ngā ringawera, ngā kai whakahaere o te hui nei, tēnā koutou. Ko ai au, he iri tēnei no te waka mātātua, te waka tainui hoki. Ngāti Pukenga, Ngāti Haua, hoku iwi, ka noho au nai nei i raro te maru o kopu kairoa te maunga, taha o te awa o Waitao, i tauranga moana. And I've been involved in maybe the other side of the fence, or maybe some of the stuff that Rachel touched on in the rows around the commercialisation of some of our material derived from our taonga. So hopefully I can say some controversial things and provoke some discussion. Working with Māori landowners, hapu, iwi entities, marae around the motu on a number of kaupapa with a number of companies and research partners for the last 10 years. And all of the kōrero today has been very pertinent to the issues that we face with the mahi that we do. And it's good to see so many collaborators and co-conspirators in the room. And particularly people like Laine in the awesome mahi that she's done in so many of these areas. I was blown away by the reo panel, and I'm really looking for a new lexicon around some of this. Indigenous biodiscovery, genomics and AI are, whole new realms that we're having to deal with, and needing kupu and those whakaaro tawhito that we can bring into te ao hau, te ao hurihuri. So the way, there's these sort of four areas that really drive some of the stuff that we have to wrestle with, and I put taonga rangatiratanga, but it's really mana motake for the taonga, and thinking about the rights of nature and that the taonga have mana in themselves. It's not just about us and what we'd like to do with them or not do with them. But recognising and creating entities that can represent those interests of the taonga itself, because they're not always overlapping with those interests of the kaitiaki. And that's something we need to work through. Kaitiaki have obligations and responsibilities, as we've heard, and rights as well, and those are obviously articulated very clearly in the claim. And to some degree in some of the international agreements that New Zealand has and hasn't signed up to so far. And those are things that we're very conscious of. The regulatory vacuum that we exist in at the moment, so that anybody can come here to Aotearoa, take anything they want and go and do anything they want with it as far as New Zealand law is concerned, and that situation has gone on far too long. Ironically, if you take it from a paddock, then you need to get permission. If you go over the fence and take it from a private paddock, then you don't need to ask anybody. And we've been wrestling with those situations in a number of the projects that we've got, and all of it's about trying to create some beneficial discoveries for humans and maybe for animals, maybe for te taiao itself. One of the projects we started on with a group of Māori landowners was exploring the properties of kānuka oil that's derived from the brush, sustainably harvested from the rākau, and we turned it into an eczema cream that we put through clinical trials, proved that it's as effective as steroid cream, and we're taking that to market in the next couple of months, starting here. Did a bit of work with hapu on kina and the waste stream, not the row, and explored some of the bioactive compounds within there. And this really interesting one with Rangiwaho Marae, just south of Tūranga, working with native fungi, those that have a compound called psilocybe in them, and psilocin. And this document you can download that Kahui Legal helped us with, Tara and Abby, at tuwairua.org, explores what a treaty-based regulatory pathway might look like for what are otherwise prohibited plants. And, we think of the Taonga Suppression Act, think that that's all gone, but there's certain taonga that the Misuse of Drugs Act prohibit people from possessing and utilising. And we're interested, if there's any smart lawyers in the room, in addition to Kahui Legal, to progress a parallel pathway to what currently exists, and the Crown assumes they have control over, and we're using this with whānau affected by methamphetamine, and the first clinical trial starts next month, and then we're in cultivation and exploring all of this. Another taonga, a very small one that grows very, very slowly to ever commercialise, but it's a liverwort or a bryophyte. It's about 400 million years old, one of the first plants to crawl out of the primordial soup onto the whenua, and we call it wairua kohu, and it contains cannabinoids, so similar to cannabis, but much, much older than cannabis. So it's got an analogue of THC, and we've discovered, soon to be published, a paper on an analogue of CBD, which is the non-psychoactive compound in cannabis. And we've been working with 3 iwi groups on that, 2 in the Waikato and 1 in Tāmaki, for about 7 years, and we're just about to start talking about it, which is super exciting. Doing some work with native berries, and this is where we're using artificial intelligence, not telling the machine which berry we've taken it from, but giving it a sample of the extract from the berry and finding the compounds much, much quicker than humans would otherwise, and also matching those molecules with the human proteome to get the hits to work out exactly where we should be focusing our clinical trials, so that we can speed up that process and save a lot of time and money. And there's some super exciting stuff in some of our berry plants, which is... and we're working with 3 iwi on that as well. 1 in the Bay of Plenty, 1 in Waikato, and 1 in Kaitau. And then sort of, as others have touched on, the benefit sharing arrangements, trying to create, in the absence of any regulatory framework, benefit sharing arrangements which ensure that both the taonga and the kaitiaki are represented and have mana over the research and development process, so nothing happens without their permission going forward, and looking at how income is derived back to those stakeholders that have given permission at whatever stage to progress the kaupapa along with other investors that we're going to need to bring into these commercial arrangements. So a number of these projects are progressing. We have a number of entities set up for the taonga. We talked to the Manuka Charitable Trust, and they were very busy fighting those trademark battles. So we set up a Kānuka Charitable Trust, trying to learn the lessons from Manuka, putting Māori in control of the Kānuka industry before anyone cares about it. Again, working with Linnell's team and putting in place all of the things that tripped up the Manuka honey industry. And also thinking about how we've got engaged kaitiaki, because we can't talk to everybody all at once because we don't have a national entity that can do these things. And that's where we need to move to, I think. And one of the wero for this rōpū, I think, is to try and how do we create a structure that would fairly represent the kaitiaki, those with rights and responsibilities for specific taonga, but under the umbrella of one entity, instead of having to duplicate a new entity for every taonga that we want to do something with. But also, how do we bring in those kaitiaki, those potiaki who aren't engaged at this point, but have rights and responsibilities, because they're not just those, they don't just belong to the rohe that we've found them in and started working on. Most of them are in others' rohe as well, and that's a challenging question. And just, I'm not a lawyer, but the fact that the Nagoya Protocol was something that the Crown considered and chose not to sign in 2014 is another potential breach of the treaty from my perspective. because it's maintaining this vacuum of regulation where anybody can, and they're coming here from around the world and around the country and exploring these taonga, taking the mātauranga from the taonga, the DNA sequences and everything, and publishing or not publishing and privatising that knowledge for the shareholders and their entities. So from my perspective, and I did this before today, so it's good to know that I think that there's a lot of commonality in the kōrero today, but having that legal and regulatory framework in place is a priority. It's a real risk that's being exploited every day. Having that collective body representing the interests of all taonga, and having another collective body that represents the interests of kaitiaki Māori. And also touched on, it was awesome to hear the presentation on the Tiaki Taonga framework. I think that has potential to evolve into a certification system. As we have for the arts, we need one for products derived from biological resources, genomic resources. And then the fifth one, to Tina's point, I think, of civil disobedience, that's just getting on and exercising our tiriti rights and making it happen, regardless of whether the Crown is coming on board or not. And apologies for the icon on that one. I was trying to show a fungi, but it might be a little bit...
Kia ora tātou, ko Laine Fisher tōku ingoa, huri tēnei no moriori no kātau hoki. I'm Laine, and there's probably a joke in there around my name and staying in my lane, but I won't go there because I've only been given 5 minutes, I think. So like a good public servant, I won't say too much. I am a policy manager at Te Puni Kōkiri, and I've been there probably just over 3 years now, and from those kind of early days, we've been able to, I guess, build a bit of capability and capacity within Te Puni Kōkiri around these issues. And in that sort of opportunity, the biggest risk we always faced was that while the sun was shining at those times, we were going to be facing some difficulties into the future. How could our team that was really focused on Y262 proceed through shifts in political priorities? How could it shift or survive, I guess, under cost pressures and the like? And we're here, we're still here. We have the largest policy team in Te Puni Kōkiri, and we're doing the mahi, so we're in there. So I guess while thinking about what is the Crown's role, we have people there to do the mahi is a good start. And based on that, we're showing up. We're showing up into the fora that are important for Māori around development, around the protection of taonga, around the ability to generate that economic benefit. So we're in the discussions. We went to the WIPO, the World Intellectual Property Organisation, negotiations back in May, and that was the first ever international treaty signed that recognised traditional knowledge, or for us Mātauranga Māori, in any sort of IP space. That was massive, and that was done unanimously. And we were able to, with Manu's help and on the shoulders of Maui and Aroha and others who have been there and leading the way in the space, actually take that first step. So that low tide mark is slowly lifting its way up in our space. What does that look like for Te Puni Kōkiri in this space at the moment is there's more question marks than full stops. I don't know if that's going to make sense, but for us it's really about what next, where do we go? And I guess we know what our role is in terms of what government should do, and it's about giving the best advice in relation to that. So it's a tough time across the public service, but I would say that being at Te Puni Kōkiri is probably slightly easier than some other spaces. we don't get quickly kind of washed out. We're here, and our kaupapa is about thriving whānau, so that's where we start and we stop. Some of the things that the government's really focused on, they are starting to see the opportunities here as well. And part of our plan when we were setting up the team was to really connect in with the kaupapa, because when these tough times came, it would be no good a few of us sitting in a room telling a minister what we think if we don't have the people behind us. If we don't have the practitioners doing the mahi on the ground, if we don't have the big thought leaders and those in the legal spaces. So we are backed by all the mahi happening, and we're able to appropriately utilise that to really push our point. So we're listening, we're in the room, and we're still here. I'll leave it there. Kia ora.
Ngā mihi nui kia koutou. Thank you very much to this panel. Can I get a bigger, louder round to say thank you? And we're going to do a quick transition now, aroha mai, for our final panel of the day.